Hello, hi, and welcome back to another VOD review. This is for week 3 versus the West Texas Wingulls, an old rival of ours and the 4-time champion of the league. Very spooky game. But yeah, I want to get things started off by taking a look at the team that we're bringing this week. I don't want to go too in depth on any of the sets or anything, but just so you got an idea of what our options look like. We got a pretty standard Ogerpon Hearthflame here, the exception being that we've got Play Rough as our coverage move for this week. Terra Dark is a pretty powerful thing into a team that looks like it's going to set Trick Room, which mine does on paper. Not the 6 I'm bringing, obviously, but my full stack roster. So it hits that. It hits my opponent's Como really well, which is a tier 3 that they've been leaning on a lot. Also takes care of Diplin in that same tier. Just kind of a generically good coverage move, and most of the time Ivy Cudgel and Horn Leech are going to take care of everything else. We've got this kind of bulky, competitive Milotic. We're kind of half expecting Intimidate for my opponent, so it just kind of looks good. Terra Dragon is a defensive option here, but we do have the Dragon Pulse that gets boosted off of it in case there's anything that our Scald and Ice Beam don't hit particularly effectively. Then we've got our Torkoal with Charty Berry. Again, we're expecting the Hisuian Arcanine to be the Intimidator that's coming this matchup. And this thing's just mainly there to set the sun and be a punish machine, right? If it's ever like, I know he's targeting the other slot, maybe we can get an Eruption off. Sludge Bomb there to deal with some of the grass types, maybe get some poisons to help us chip through bulkier things. Also Terra Grass Heatran, very common idea against Torkoal in Draft League, so looking out for that. We've got this Luxray, it's really bulky Luxray. We've got these good physical attacks. We've got the AV to just make it even bulkier. We got Terraflying Terra Blast. Again, my opponent's got a lot of grassy options, a lot of fighting types, so Terraflying just seemed like a good option. Also, there's a Mamoswine on my opponent's roster, so being able to get ground immunity, kind of big. And then we're doing something weird this week. We're bringing double tier 4s. My opponent has a really solid Rain Core, and so it kind of just makes sense to be bringing Lumineon with Storm Drain. And we've got, it's not Prankster, but it's a super fast Tailwind comparatively to what my opponent can set outside of Prankster. And then we've got Icy Winds. If we have matched Tailwinds, I can try and slow them down to actually get in front of things. And then D-Gleam's just good coverage, defensive Terra type. And then we've got the Elamise, again, every week so far. And this time we've just got Thunderwave, another form of speed control. Again, if we have matched Tailwinds, we can use Thunderwave to try and slow things down. Also win the Mental War. We've got Sunny Day to set the sun, so we don't have to use Torkoal to get that if we just want to boost up the Ogerpon or fight off their rain. And then we've just got Struggle Bug as our damage move and Tailwind. Pretty simple stuff. My opponent has Volbeat on their roster, which is the version of Elamise that gets Taunt. So that's the point of the Mental Herb, is we want to avoid that nonsense. But yeah, that's kind of what we got going on in a nutshell this week, and I don't see any reason to not start looking at the matchup. Oh, hey, look, it's my face down there. Yikes. But yeah, so now we get to see what 6 my opponent actually brought. We've got this Heatran. Mold Breaker on Ogerpon lets us hit fire moves into that. Or it should, if there's not an ability shield there. There's an ability shield there. Spoiler alert, we'll get to that. But we've got the other Ogerpon. We've got the Water Ogerpon. Which is kind of annoying for our Milotic, but that's part of why we've got the Dragon Pulse on there, is if it goes Terra Water and has Water Absorb, the Ice Beam's not going to do much. Dragon Pulse will still be fine. The Zapdos looks kind of scary on paper, I get that, but with the Milotic and the Ogerpon, we actually deal with it pretty quickly in most scenarios. So that's pretty cool. The Mamoswine we weren't really expecting, but we have, the Intimidates, we have the Terraflying to get around being hit by massive earthquakes, and we've got the Milotic to smack it. The Como kind of expected what it did in this game. Wasn't expected, but we did have it. And then the Gothorita is just a weird one. It's one of those that is like, what is it actually going to do when it gets here? So looking at this on paper, I'm going to go ahead and hit play so we can see the thought process get going. But yeah, first thought is Ogerpon looks fine here. It outspeeds kind of everything. And yeah, I think maybe just going one of the supportive pieces second makes a lot of sense. Maybe just throwing out the Illumis here, but I think in game 1 I really wanted to bring the Lumineon. A, just to get its usage up, but B, just to have that Storm Drain option. We're going to double check what the moves are here. There you go. But yeah, and so I think that was my idea. I don't know that it was necessarily correct, but I think it was fine. I think it's an okay read. I think this left me a little bit exposed to like a Mamoswine Como lead or a Zapdos Mamoswine lead, just because if there's Protect on both, it's really easy to just kind of use Zapdos to start whacking on the Milotic and force out Terra instantly, which is kind of fairly disadvantageous in this matchup to just know who's going to be Terra'd when there's so many defensive Terras in the mix. But we see the Gothorita Como, should be a reoccurring theme. And we're threatening with double play roughs here. We don't know if it's physical or special Como at the moment, but opponent's already going to figure out multiple of the held items using that Frisk, which also lets us know that we are not shadow tagged. We're not forced to stay in here. And we're kind of just relying on him not expecting the play rough here in game 1. And I think the idea behind pulling the Luxray here was just to get the Intimidate in the back so it can come back out later when the physical attackers that are guaranteed to be physical attackers hit the field. And the Milotic just isn't really under threat in this scenario. And yeah, unsure if we have the play rough, it just goes down. Free KO. And now it's a 4v3, and we have basically full HP on we have full HP on everybody. So kind of just a free trade up on that one. The punish there, I guess, was a scouting protect that showed off our moves, but in the position that we were in, we could have then just Terra'd the what's it called? Milotic. Sorry. The nicknames are throwing me off. And still been in a pretty okay position. We just threaten with the play rough and the Scald to cover for the Fire Terra that the Como has. And then we're also playing into Burn Chance with that. So here, just taking a defensive turn to scout. And see if we can bait out the Terra immediately. And this was the other reason, was to see if Heatran was going to protect. So no information gained for the opponent, and we find out the Gothorita has Charm, which is kind of big. It doesn't end up mattering here, but it means that in the future games we can try to play for positions where the Gothorita is going to try and Charm, and we switch in our competitive Milotic to get a free boost. So I think there's a pretty decent argument for pulling the Milotic here, knowing that there's a Terra Grass Heatran and that we just protected. And so obviously we can match Terras, and that's fine, or we can just eat one, which I think is what we've opted to do here, which is probably the least good option. But yeah, just switching in, that tells us that there's an ability shield. It takes us a second to realize it, but we did know about this tech. We just weren't sure that our opponent did. Terra Blast hurts so bad. And there's the charm. Attack harshly falls, which means kind of sitting duck on the Ogerpon right now. We're still massively up, but we can't hit the Heatran anyway, so it's a good idea to just pull the Ogerpon, I think. Get a reset on all that. And the big allure for going the Lumineon here is that we are probably going to need to Terra the Milotic defensively, and so bringing in the Luxray, if it wanted to do anything offensive, it was going to need to offensively Terra, and I just don't think that was the right play. So we stay in here. I don't know that I love that. This Heat Wave's going to hurt, but it works out, kind of. So we confirmed there that that Milotic is gonna get another attack off, even if it doesn't Terra. But if it Terras, it's for sure getting another one off, because going for the spread move there to try and pick up the KO. So yeah, just Terra, go super effective hit into the Heatran. The punish to this doesn't actually punish us very hard because it's just protect and psychic into the Milotic. But no protect comes out, so we're kind of balling on that front. Boom, look, he's so pretty. He's so pretty. Ice Beam, because we're so fast. Really would have loved for that to kill, but we obviously needed to invest in our defenses so that we can live stuff like this. So we resist that. The Psychic we don't resist, but luckily Gothorita sucks at doing damage. So, and no drop there is pretty huge. That would have been not problematic entirely because we get competitive proc, but still a little spooky. And yeah, I think this is correct. You should protect, get the leftovers, heal. If he protects, cool, we're still going to be faster. If you don't protect, you're getting hit by an Icy Wind. And even if there's a switch in, whatever switches in is already getting slowed once, and then we can get the Tailwind up if we need to outspeed it immediately, or we can Icy Wind again out in front and just hope that it hits and be faster with everything at -2. But we protect the Milotic. I think the Heatran protects here. Yeah. Heatran with the protect, just looking for a free switch angle. And the Icy Wind comes out. Boom, look at that huge damage into Ogerpon. But hugely, now it is never going to be a speed tie question between the Ogerpons. We were running Adamant this week, and so if, you know, he was Jolly, there was the whole like, oh, get outspeed. If we're both Adamant, the speed tie. But with that Icy Wind going off, we are for sure going to be faster. And I think here my favorite button presses are just Icy Wind, Dragon Pulse. But this switch, it kind of makes sense if you just want to get and intimidate onto this Ogerpon and keep the Milotic in a position where we can get another free leftovers heal without taking any damage. And this Lumineon pickup on the Heatran is so huge. I don't know how much damage that is supposed to do. That's not something that I calced. But that being enough to pick up that KO massive tempo. And then this Horn Leech comes out. You can have the HP back. You're already a -1 attack, -2 speed, and you're down to your last 2. And there's a Fake Out coming in on the Gothorita. And now my opponent knows all 4 of my items, maybe? Yeah, all 4, because that's so sad. But we still have a full health Luxray. Nothing is in a great position to deal damage to the Milotic. We're kind of just fine. I think it's okay to just swing with the Lumineon here. And if I'm not going to do that, I should always read into this Spiky Shield and just switch out the Luxray. The Ogerpon kind of has done its job. We also could just target the Gothorita. I think doing anything other than what we did with Luxray here was correct. Because he can't really hit the Ivy Cudgel right now because of Storm Drain, so can't get around that -1 attack stat, which is the big deal. And so I think I even say it on stream right here in a second that it should just be a Horn Leech at the Lumineon, and that'll enable the rain boosted Ivy Cudgels to start coming out. So we could have just made a read there, swapped in the Milotic on that. I think that may have been a little bit better. Just go for a classic double switch to reset the Intimidate as well. But we reset the Intimidate. The idea being that we get it in for free, and now we have Tailwind. Everything is just always going to be faster. I think we were already always going to be faster than everything. Could just hit D-Gleam or Icy Wind there for some chip. Don't think it really mattered though. Free Storm Drain boost. Not sure about that button press from my opponent, but Psychic picks up the Lumineon, so same effect. Ivy Cudgels can start going crazy now in the rain. But at -1, it means that they're really going to need to pick up those crits. I think I like bringing in the Luxray here just to get a second Intimidate down. But I think also bringing in the Ogerpon is fine, just to set up a double protect turn. Stall out any Spiky Shield from my opponent. And just deal with the Gothorita. Because these Psychics are actually the biggest threat to the Milotic right now. Which is very funny. My opponent thought very hard about this turn. But we protect, get a little extra healing in. Spiky Shield, easy reads. And it's just bonk the Gothorita. Decent damage, not great, but again, fully bolt Luxray, not really expecting huge damage. The Charm is cute, but doesn't do a whole lot here. We already weren't expecting huge damage. We don't want to switch the Ogerpon into a free KO for my opponent, I think is the only reason to just leave the Luxray in here, but I think the resulting effect is the same. Checking, we still got 2 Tailwind turns, 2 Rain turns, those are synced up. Yeah, I don't know about that. I guess the argument here is that there's not going to be a Gothorita anyway to target, so it works out. But Scald gets rid of that, so we can start hitting this thing with impunity. Wild Charge at -2 or -1, whatever it is, we'll take that. Ivy Cudgel in the rain goes ouchie, and that is a crit. So would have been a bad time to switch in an Ogerpon there, but now the Terra Dragon Milotic is looking great. And we can speed run this. Ogerpon comes out. You know, we hit into a spiky shield, which we survive, delays the inevitable, goes for another spiky shield, doesn't work, KO. With Horn Leech, Ogerpon on the board, yeehaw. If you don't believe me, we can just watch it real quick in 1.5 speed. Oh, we also spiky shield, and they Ivy Cudgel with the last turn of Tailwind and Rain to try and get big damage. But unfortunately, no crit means no dice. Rain stops. Tailwind is over, Rain is over. We Horn Leech. Keep him honest. Because I don't think we've seen all the moves. There could be like a weird Swords Dance on this Ogerpon as well. That's a factor in the logic there. But now you just Horn Leech and Dragon Pulse. Either one should pick up the KO. No spread moves on the Ogerpon means this is a guaranteed end of game. So overall, mostly good button presses in game one. There were definitely some different lines that we could have taken to get to that finish line that I think may have been a little bit cleaner, but overall solid. Yeah, not too shabby. And so now, looking at a game two, I'm going to kind of speed run us to the team preview here. Yeah, so game two, same thing I was talking about in game one, where we kind of want the Illumies to just start asserting pressure pretty quickly. And just dropping the Lumineon for the Illumies, swapping out the tier 4, I think is perfectly logical. I think there are several good arguments for leading the Milotic here instead. The main one being that the immediate threatening of the Milotic is much harder to pull off for my opponent. Whereas the immediate threatening of the Ogerpon is kind of everything in this matchup. But we're worried about letting like a Throat Spray Como go off or anything like that. So we really want one of those instant delete the Como buttons available in the lead was my logic. And if they lead something goofy and punishable, we could just Sunny Day, Ivy Cudgel, just start going to town on that. Very mature trainer card. And we see the exact same lead. So this time it's a bit of a coin flip. We should be pretty confident that a Terra is going to come out here from the Como or a Protect. So I think the idea is just to deal with this Gothorita before they can really set up or do anything. And we're kind of reading that there won't be a fake out because I've continually run Covert Cloak on the Illumise, and the idea is that I could scout with Spiky Shield, and that would actually just damage the Gothorita for trying to fake me out. But it is the Terra instead of a Protect. Excuse me. And nothing too suspicious yet. We're a little concerned about what the Como is going to do, but fake out stops the Sunny Day, which is fine. Should still be good damage. Hoping for a crit. Don't get one, but that's fine. And then we see the Iron Defense, and that's not a great thing to see. And so we're just going to Thunder Wave it. And I think this is where the things start going off the rails. I should either just switch the Ogerpon out here or start Ivy Cudgeling the Como. Even resisted in Sunny Day, these Ivy Cudgels are monstrous. And you just need that one crit to break through those and do some really huge damage. But we think Thunder Wave is fine for now. Get get some possible paraprocs, and we are going to nuke this switch in pretty hard. Boom. No Sunny Day means that that's okay. We find a Citrus Berry, which means that with Sunny Day, that is a dead Zapdos. In theory. It is pretty close, and if we pick up the crit, it's guaranteed. Part of me thinks that there's a good argument to just double switch out here. Neither one of these things on the field is super doing anything, and if the Zapdos just plays defensively here, it's kind of really bad. Like, if this is just a protect iron defense for my opponent, we're in trouble. But we get the sun up. We're thinking, hey, that's a pretty good chance to kill that bird. It doesn't. Unlucky, which means now there's a tailwind for my opponent, which we can match because we still have the Illumies on the field, but that's not very high tempo. A very, depending on what the Como was doing there, that was a fortunate paralysis proc. If that was just an iron defense again, that kind of didn't really change anything. If that was a body press at the Ogerpon, that would have been pretty bad. But now we match tailwinds. And that's just night-night for Zapdos. Good night, Burb. And Paraproct again. Yeah. So that's... We're feeling pretty good right here, and I think that shows how dumb I am. Because we are far from out of the woods. Stop being excited, you little rat. Mamoswine comes out, which is air quotes good news. But again, this Illumise is just sitting here doing nada. Can't Thunder Wave. Struggle Bug's going to do nothing into either one of these. We're not threatening the Como with anything, but it's hard to switch anything in. I think the play here should always be to just Spiky Shield and bring in the Milotic into that left slot. The idea being that you're not really going to body press that, and Mamoswine's not threatening huge damage, but we go the Intimidate route instead. And I think we swing even, which leaves us really open to getting punished by a flinch there, which I don't love. I think we could have played defensively around having an extra Tailwind turn from the offset, but here comes that +1 body press at below half. That's, or like half-ish, that's plenty. And why would we bring the Illumise back in? That is just terrible. So we should have brought in the Milotic, gone for the Terra, played defensively. Although I think we're playing around Terra flying here because it's the best defensive Terra that I have against this body press nonsense. I still think I should be clicking Wild Charge. It's just better damage, unless I'm going to Terra Blast at the Gothorita to deal with it. And revealing the Struggle Bug here is definitely an option. But with no ability to protect on the field, with the Fake Out having been reset, I think just kind of super negative tempo. Then again, he knows all the items, so he could just read the obvious, that one's going to protect, and I'll just fake out the other one. So, wasn't sure what my Illumise was going to do there. We don't even deal with the Gothorita. And that body press, yeah, you take that, but now we're not going to get another Tailwind up, but neither is my opponent, so that's kind of fine. And I think you've got to use that Terra Blast at the Como, or Wild Charge it. I think you're going down pretty likely to 2 body presses, so maybe it's Terra Blast into Wild Charge. Um, but if Struggle Bug doesn't pick up the Gotharita, then we were doomed anyway, which it doesn't. So, you know. Now here's another attack at the -1 special attack Gotharita that we should have just ignored. Um, which that'll pick that up. Cute, but again, what does it really accomplish? Body press comes out. We eat one, and so now I think with this last turn, it makes a lot more sense to just reset the sun. No, it doesn't. Right, because we want to be scalding in the back. Our Ogerpon is dead. I thought we had Ogerpon in the back, but Wild Charge, bud. Why are we hovering anything other than Terra Blast or Wild Charge? It should be Wild Charge. Well, I've got a dog visiting me, but we can watch how this plays out. Yeah, and so I think it's just get busy attacking. You can just ignore the Illumise. It's not going to do any damage. You could protect to just waste the attacking turn, but at this point we're really just relying on paralysis procs to win the game, which could happen, realistically, but it's not a great win condition. Crit there may have also been pretty impactful, but Body Press just does it, and Illumise is never going to win this. So, game 2, I think the big takeaways were that if the Terra is going to come out from the Como, we have got to reposition into position with our special attacker quicker, or just get to whacking it. Can't actually just let it sit there and stat up, which sounds obvious, but sometimes you can get away with stuff like that. And again, we were a paralysis proc away from this being a 2-0, right? So, hard to blame much of the logic, but I think we could have played a much cleaner game. And let's speed run to the next team preview, because I think we make the right call. I think we have a good 4 for the matchup. We just can't sit there with Ogerpon and Illumise doing nothing for ever. And that the sun is a bigger factor than anticipated. Just slap it up and start swinging at stuff. So it's Como Mamoswine, and we learned that the Mamoswine is scarfed last time. So I think here we're reading, he can have a setup turn with the Como O, and we're gonna Thunder Wave it to just be annoying anyway. That's really all our Illumise can do here. I don't think Tailwind will get us in front of the Mamoswine being scarfed, because we put no speed on this Milotic. And outspeeding the Como right now doesn't really matter, especially if it's going to protect or something like that. But mainly we're just testing the waters here to see if it's going to immediately Terra this time. But instead it switches to the Gotharita, which is annoying, but fine. I already knew about the item there. He didn't know about the mental alert, but now he does. Thunderwave connects. Annoying. High horsepower. Hurts pretty bad, but nothing we could have done about that. Scald. Hurts also bad. This is kind of a weird spot. I think I like Protect Struggle Bug here. Or even Protect Switch. Because you gotta imagine the Fake Out is coming into the slot that he's pretty confident isn't gonna protect. But maybe you get a Paralysis proc. And that makes this line a little bit cleaner. Could also switch in Deluxe right here, just to get an Intimidate. You're not gonna eat too much damage from the Rock Slide. Yeah. High horsepower. Kind of a weird spot. There's not a good switch, which I think is why my opponent is confident in their position. But it comes down to, is double speed Milotic faster than 1.5 speed invested Mamoswine? And we're just going to kind of have to hope that it is. I mean, it's not like Milotic is slow. So, and as it turns out, Milotic's faster with the Tailwind up. So, Sleepy Mamoswine, doesn't really matter what the Scott the Reed is going to do. It can't charm anything on the field effectively. So it's just the Psychic at the Milotic, and we'll eat those all day. And again, the second he gives me a stat drop with one of those Psychics, it's huge for me. So we almost are inviting those. we welcome the attempt. But chip damage does add up. So we've got to be respectful. And the Heatran comes out, which tells us that he really wants to deal with the Milotic before he goes with the Como. And so, yeah, I think I like just switching around here, seeing if you can bait out the Terra from him. Or the Protect, yeah. Just see if the Terra is going to come out. There's a pretty half-decent argument for just Struggle Bugging here, but Thunderwave covers for more stuff, I guess. But I like the thought of just getting this special attack down in this situation. Heat Wave comes out. If it gets our bug off the field, that's actually a boost for us. And it does. So it's a free switch in to something that's actually going to provide some more threat here. I think here, with both of them paralyzed, it's kind of just okay to swing at the Heatran. But yeah, part of the idea was that we were trying to set up this thing where we could get the Milotic switched into one of these charms, but it's just a little too involved. I think we still end up playing for it because there's nothing left to intimidate, right? We know it's just fully set up Como, which also means that the Luxury's value is kind of down, so just storing the Milotic in the back to come in late and try and clean up the game makes some good sense, but it's kind of a low tempo turn out of me. And we're just going to eat a Heat Wave here with our Assault Vest. And that burn kind of sucks. Pretty bad, I would argue. Yeah, I think there's a lot of good lines here. I think with the Luxury being burned and there being nothing left to intimidate, we can kind of just leave the Milotic in the back. And and play with what's on the field to the best of our abilities. We use the Luxray to target the Heatran, and we use the Ogerpon to target the Gothorita. But yeah, so the Heatran switches out, which means it actually would have been an insane read. One option was that we could read that there was going to be a Grass Terra there, and we could have just play roughed that slot that turn, because that would have been the best damage from the Ogerpon into that slot. We could have just doubled it. The punish being that just a Heat Wave does a lot. But we finally see the leftovers on, or we already saw the leftovers on the combo. We knew about this, but sticky spot. One thing that we always end up talking about is that you just got to keep him honest sometimes. And so here it's like he could Terra the Como. He could be saving the Terra for the Heatran to deal with the Milotic better. Reading that I won't play rough into the Como at this time because it could hit the Terra. And so I think keeping him honest is always correct here. And that is no Terra confirmed. Or no, it's after switches Terras happen. But there's the switch to the Heatran, which is great news for us because all the damage left on basically either team is on the field right now, and we deal with half of it. No Terra from the Como there is huge. And it's kind of just downhill from here, I think. We're up against another turn where obviously there's going to be the fake out respect turn here where we just double protect, which also just buys us more healing on our Milotic. But then yeah, now it's a free Milotic Terra defensively against the Heatran. It's got nothing for that. The Gothorita is as likely to boost us as it is to do anything meaningful in the matchup. Scald or Ice Beam should be a pretty big pickup, but I think we Scald here on this next turn just to keep him honest unless we see the Terra this turn, which we don't. And there's the Power Gem reveal, expecting us to have Terra'd that turn, which means that we don't even really have to, but could be reading into the fact that we haven't yet, and go for something like a Heat Wave this next turn to try and deal with the Ogerpon at the same time. I don't know that I like switching there. But we're just trying to play the mind game, I think. Wait this out, see if we can get the Terra to come out. Because the longer he doesn't, the more confident we become that he will on the next turn. But yeah, we just get our Luxray out, kind of almost as fodder. Alright, because with the burn, it's not doing that much damage. It's like there's nothing to intimidate. The ability's not doing anything. It just gets us a turn where we get rid of the Gothorita to reduce the opponent's total damage options. And then here we can just send it. Wild Charge. And probably just Horn Leech it. I think that Stab makes it the better option. Could also protect here, reading that the Power Gem is just going to go at the Ogerpon to let us get even a little more chip, but we see the damage. It's like nothing. It's a 4x resist. But Wild Charge comes out, and we take a crit. Huge damage. Given how much damage it probably should have done. Heat Wave deals with the Luxray but doesn't take out the Ogerpon. which I think is the really positive aspect of that trade. So now in a proper 2v1, we can just protect Horn Leech, I think is maybe the correct play, but we're also faster. We can just go for the Terra knowing that it doesn't have any good damage for that. Power Gym being its best move is huge. And Scald, just to keep him honest on having not hit the Terra button yet. And Ogrebond can just go for these little Horn Leeches to make it a bit of a stall out. Should get a little bit of HP back every time. Maybe live a Heat Wave. Heat Wave miss would also be huge at any point. But $50 to $60, definitely still don't live one yet. We're very far away. But the Scald picks it up. And you can see we're very excited about that. But yeah. And so with that, we won a close one. It was a very hard fought game. And again, just one more paraproc in game 2 could have won it for us. It could have been a 2-0 sweep, but hate relying on RNG like that. So a deserved loss in game 2. And I think let's kill that music. It's starting to get to me. Or not, I guess. But whatever. Yeah, I think a lot of good takeaways from that. I think we had a good game plan. We were able to fix what we did in game 2 for game 3 without changing the Pokemon. I think there's definitely still a lot of little positional errors with the team, and with some of the free agency moves coming in, I think we will get even better. But that does it for this week's VOD, and VOD review, I should say. And we will catch you for the next one versus JCJ, I think. So, look forward for that one. And we'll see you.